This video is brought to you by makingcustomknives.com. In this episode, I'll show you how I make a quick and simple knife sheath. I lay out the sheath on a paper template. I place the knife directly over the center line and mark the widest part of the knife handle. Next, I place the knife on the outside of the width mark and trace its form. Next, I draw the edges of the sheath, bordering the knife form approximately 1/2 inch. I cut along this border from the center line so that I can fold it over and trace the mirrored image. I use the completed template to trace and cut the sheath from a piece of 6-ounce leather. To make the most closely fitting sheath, I will use the knife itself as a form and mold the leather around it. After about 20 minutes soaking in warm water, the leather becomes soft and pliable. Then I mold it around the knife, which is protected from moisture with plastic wrap. I work the leather with my hands, stretching and forming it so that it fits tightly against the blade, especially at the handle. When the leather dries, it becomes stiff and holds its form. At this point, I begin to glue and stitch the belt loop to the sheath. I roughen the surfaces with sandpaper to improve the glue bond. I use a piece of metal backing to evenly distribute clamping pressure while the glue dries. Now I lay out the initial stitching on the belt loop. Notice that I leave room at the top, where the other end of the belt loop will be folded over. I used the smallest drill bit I had, which happened to be a number 57 bit, to make these holes. I used a V-gouge to cut a channel over the holes. This is so that the stitching sits below the surface of the leather and is more resistant to being torn out. The next step is to fold the strap over and secure the belt loop. I glue and stitch this part in the same manner as before. With the belt loop complete, the next thing I want to do is stitch the sheath closed. I begin by marking on the inside of the sheath where the two halves come together around the knife. Before gluing, I cut this relief curve on the outside half of the sheath. This will make it easier to insert the knife. At this point, it is again advisable to protect the knife with plastic. Before I put in the final stitching on the sheath, I cut off all excess material and I sand all exposed contours. The stitching here follows the outside edges and is reinforced at the opening. Since the seam here is so much longer than on any other part of the sheath, I'm using a compass to give me consistently spaced holes. But aside from that, the process is the same as shown previously, so I'll just fast forward to the finished product. For more instructional content on knife making, check out my website at makingcustomknives.com.